Now this is the story about how jack-o'-lanterns came to be. You see, once upon a time, there was a blacksmith who was really, really good at what he did, but he didn't like people very much. They were always hanging around his workshop and giving him trouble and distracting him from his work. Even when they came to get work done, when he was making horseshoes or making nails, they'd come around and ask questions or try to give him all kinds of distractions, and he didn't like that. He liked to get his work done. Well, he got himself a reputation for being mean to all the neighbors, and so he had the nickname of Mean Jack. But you see, it wasn't that he was a terrible person. He just wanted to get his work done. So it was that one day a stranger came by to kind of test him, to see what kind of a person he really was. And this person was old and kind of feeble and had a walking stick to help him walk because he could hardly move. And he looked so thin that it looked like he hadn't eaten in a week. And he came by Jack's workshop and said, "Excuse me, sir, but do you have a little bit of food and water? I've had a hard time and it's difficult for me to get by." And Jack looked at the fellow and said, "Sure, it's time for me to have my lunch break. You can come and join me." And Jack took him inside and shared his lunch with him and gave him nice cool cider to drink and bread and cheese and a little bit of meat to eat. And the man was very happy and said, "Could I sit here and rest for a little bit?" And Jack said, "Sure, you can do that. Just don't distract me from my work." And Jack went back to work. And at the end of the day, the man had sat there quietly watching Jack work. And Jack came back and said, "You feeling better now? You need someplace to sleep?" Why, thank you. That would be kind of you." And he slept by the fire while Jack slept in his bed. And the next morning, that decrepit, skinny little man with the walking stick helping him to walk stood up big and strong and opened his coat, and he was wearing fine white robes, and said, "Jack, I do not understand you. You have the reputation for being so mean to your neighbors, but you were so kind to me." And Jack said, "I'm mean to folks that just annoy me. You didn't do anything bad." Well, that man who had come to visit, who just might have been an angel or something, said, "I know that you're a good man, so I'm going to give you 3 chances to do something good. I'm going to give you 3 wishes. And how you use those wishes is going to determine how things go for you forever." And Jack thought and said, "Let's go back over to my workshop." Okay. And they went back to his workshop, and Jack said, "See this hammer? This is the hammer I need to use for most of my work. People are always pestering me about that hammer, and kids are always trying to run off with it and play with it, and I need to be able to use it. So if anyone but me grabs that hammer, it's going to hammer and hammer without them letting go. And I'll have to tell them to let it go. Otherwise, the hammer will just keep hammering away." And the angel, if that's what he was, said, "That's not a very good wish, but okay." And for my second wish, you see that rocking chair over there? That's for me to sit down in when I'm not working. Now, that's not very much of the day, but I want to be able to sit down when I want to. And people come into my workshop and they'll just sit down and rock there and talk to me and distract me and mess up what I'm doing. If they sit down, if anybody but me sits down in that rocking chair, it's going to rock back and forth and back and forth and back and forth till I say it can stop. Well, that's an awful mean wish, said the angel, if that's what he was. But okay. Now, what's your third wish? And think about this and use it wisely, Jack. And Jack said, you see that berry bush right outside my workshop? Yes. Well, it's got berries in it, but it's also got thorns, so you have to be careful when you pick the berries there. And you know, every time there are berries that are ripe there, people come by and they just grab berries out of there without my say-so. It's my berry bush and I want to be able to eat the berries from it. So if they grab berries, it's going to grab them and pull them into the berry bush, and the thorns in there are going to stick them till I let it go. I've got to tell the berry bush to let people out, or they're stuck there. Well, that's another awful mean wish, said the angel, if that's what he was. But okay, those are your 3 wishes, and I grant them to you because you were kind to me. But you really ought to think about some way to not be so mean. And the angel walked off down the road, and Jack, he went back to work. Now, it so happened that he had such a mean reputation that his reputation got all the way down to parts below where the devil was. And don't you know, the devil hates for anybody to have a meaner reputation than he does. So one day he said to one of the little devils, you go up there and bring me back this fella named Mean Jack. I want to talk to him myself to find out if he's really meaner than I am. So the little devil went up and said, well, come along with me. And Jack looked, and there was that little devil, and he said, why should I? Well, because the devil wants to meet you. Now I'm busy. You can't be too busy to come and meet the devil. Yeah, I am. I got a lot of work to do. I got to make all these horseshoes. Okay, I'll help you. And the little devil went over and picked up Jack's hammer. And Jack's hammer began to hammer and hammer and hammer with that little devil holding on. Hey, this, I can't let go of this. That's because you grabbed my hammer without my say-so. I didn't say you could help. Oh, but make it let me go. Please. No. Not till you promise me that you're going to leave me alone for 7 years. Okay. Make me free from this hammer. Please. And Jack said, okay, hammer, let him go. And that little devil disappeared out of Jack's workshop, and he went back down to the devil and said, oh, he's too mean. I had to promise him we'd leave him alone for 7 years just to get back. Wow, that's pretty mean, all right, said the devil. But now we've got to leave him alone for 7 years. And sure enough, they did. And in those 7 years, Jack's neighbors complained about him some more. And they said, he's meaner than the devil himself. Well, now the devil really wanted to find out about this mean Jack. And he sent a bigger little devil this time, one that was a little tougher and wasn't going to fall for that trick with the hammer. And this one, this sort of middle-sized devil went up and said, now, Jack, 7 years are up, so you got to come and meet the devil, because he's curious to see why people say you're meaner than he is. Oh, well, Jack didn't really want to go meet the devil. And he said, I'm still busy. It's going to be hours before my work is done. And that medium-sized devil thought, well, all right, I'll just stand around. I'm not going near your hammer. And Jack said, that's fine. And Jack began hammering with it himself, making horseshoes and nails and other things. But that medium-sized devil, he got bored. He began tapping his foot, and he began twiddling his thumbs, and he didn't have anything to do, and he saw this nice rocking chair sitting there, and he said, I'm just going to sit down and wait. And he went over and sat in that rocking chair, and Jack just smiled. And that medium-sized devil rocked and back and forth. And the chair started rocking back and forth on its own. And that medium-sized devil said, hey, wait a minute, this chair is moving without me. I'm getting rocked really hard. And Jack said, that's because you sat down there without my say-so. It's going to keep doing that. And that medium-sized devil said, well, how do I get it to stop? And Jack said, you promise me you won't come back for another 7 years, and I'll make it stop. And after it had been rocking for a little while more, that medium-sized devil was getting himself chair sick from that rocking back and forth. And he finally said, all right, we won't come back for another 7 years. And Jack said, chair, stop. And that chair stopped. And that medium-sized devil got up and said, you won't see me again. You won't see any of us for another 7 years. And that medium-sized devil ran all the way back down below and told the devil himself, that Jack really is mean. Oh, I had to promise him another 7 years just to not take him because he's really, really mean. Well, the devil said, all right, we can wait another 7 years. And Jack had another 7 years, and by then his neighbors were saying, Jack is the meanest in the whole world. Well, the devil really wanted to meet him now, so the devil went himself up to meet Jack, and Jack said, well, I guess it has been 7 years, but I'm still busy. And the devil said, you won't fool me with your hammer, and you won't fool me with that rocking chair. And the devil went around and looked at all Jack's tools, and Jack worked, and the devil started thinking, what's that I smell? And he looked around and looked outside Jack's workshop, and there was a bush full of fresh, ripe berries. Now the devil, he was not much of a gardener himself, and he hadn't tasted anything like that in a long time. And so he said, you just finish your work, Jack. I'll amuse myself. And he reached out into that berry bush, carefully avoiding the thorns, and grabbed a nice bunch of berries and started pulling them out. And the berry bush grabbed him with its thorns and pulled him in, all the way into the berry bush. And he was getting stuck with thorns and stickers from every direction possible. Oh, said the devil. And Jack stopped his work and came out. And the devil said, I'll bet you knew this was going to happen, didn't you? And Jack said, yep. So, are you going to let me go? Seeing as how it's you, I'll let you go if you promise never to bother me again. And the devil said, I don't want to ever see you again. I certainly don't want to have anything to do with you. And Jack said, in that case, Berry Bush, let him go. And the thorns and the stickers opened up, and the devil ran off. He didn't even taste those berries. But, time does pass, and eventually Jack passed away. And he thought to himself, well, my work's done. I guess I'll see what comes next. And he walked and walked, and he walked that pathway that he thought might lead all the way up to heaven, and sure enough it did. And there at the gate was that fella who'd come and tested him about being kind versus being mean. And the fella there at the gate said, oh, Jack, you were nice to me, but that kind of thing was about the only nice thing you ever did. You were so mean to everybody else. There's so many marks against you in the book. I'm afraid we can't let you in here. So, Jack thought, I guess I'll have to go someplace else then. Nice seeing you. And he walked and walked and walked until he found himself all the way outside the devil's own gates. And he knocked on that. And one of the little devils looked over the gate and said, oh no, it's him! And he went back inside and told the devil that Jack was at the gate. And the devil said, what are you doing here? Well, they wouldn't let me in upstairs, so I thought I'd come down and spend some time here. Oh, no, you're not. We don't want to have anything to do with you. Well, but it's dark out here, and it's, kind of lonesome. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a little bit of hellfire to light your way, but you can't stay in here. And he tossed a bit of hellfire over the gate for Jack to catch. Ow, 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 this hurts. This is too bright. All right. And they threw over a big pumpkin gourd that had been hollowed out. And Jack put that piece of hellfire inside. Just cut an opening in there, maybe two, and you can light your way. And Jack cut openings in the pumpkin gourd. And there he could use it to light his way. Well, all right. But you'll be sorry you didn't let me in there. Oh, I'm not going to be sorry, said the devil. I didn't want to let anybody in meaner than me. And so it was that Jack wandered off into the darkness and the night, carrying that pumpkin with a couple of holes in the front and light shining out the front. And he walked back until he got back on earth, because he couldn't go above and he couldn't go below. Nobody would take him in. And on dark nights, when you go places where there might be the ghosts and the spirits and things that go bump in the night, you might see something that looks almost like a face coming out of a pumpkin with lights. And people heard the story that might be old Jack. And they said, that's Jack's lantern. And they called him Jack of the Lantern. Jack-o'-lantern. And that's how that light got that name. And it became a sign of ghosts and spirits and something you might see on Halloween. So, if you go out on a dark, dark night and you see a jack-o'-lantern coming along with nobody carrying it, don't worry. That's just the ghost of old Jack, Jack-o'-lantern.